Hello everybody, Pillars TCG here, and today I am here with Mozz from the Combo Masters team.
Wow, yay.
And today we're talking about something I think is pretty important on the podcast, and that's how you create an idea for your trading card game. You know, like the initial concept that brings everything to light. So, to start off, just what are some of the concepts you've made in your games?
Well, a lot. There's balloons, and crabs, and food,
But
and,
what
and everything.
So did your ideas originally start with creating a game centered around crabs or balloons or food? Or did you start, like, was that your original idea or did you start with, like, a gameplay mechanic?
No, it's been basically, except for the balloon one, Balloon Busters, it's basically just been like, oh, what would happen if I tried to make a game based on crabs, you know?
All right, tell me about that a bit more because I find it interesting, like, basing your game off of the, like, art concept rather and like how the characters will look rather than the actual rules of the game. I've never done that before.
Well, I think a big thing for me is that it's easier for me to be like, oh, hey, I'm going to make a game based on soda. How would that work? And then like, oh, well, I'll have like a vending machine and money. And you have to buy the soda, and then the soda does stuff, and then, you have to figure out what the soda does. And so I come up with my mechanics based on the theme instead, you know?
Interesting. So like say you're making a game and I don't know why it's come to my mind, but like I'm just thinking of Demi here. So if you're making a game about like gods, you would want, and I don't know too much about how the game works. I'm just shouting them out because is a trading card game about gods out there if you're interested in that stuff. But you would want to be like, all right, how would I incorporate followers into this? The gods' mythology, things like that. Is that kind of the direction you go?
Yeah, pretty much.
Interesting. I've just never done that. For me, I do more of the classic like just thinking up. Actually, what I do, to be completely honest, or did a lot more. Now I've got the hang of it, so I can just kind of do it as I want. But when I was younger, I watched a lot of like say Yu-Gi-Oh, for example. And I would
Hmm.
just be watching Yu-Gi-Oh, and I'm one of those people that when I watch something, I get in an extreme mood for that specific thing. So like
Yeah, same.
if I'm watching like a sports TV show or movie, I'll like text my friends and I'll be like, "Hey, let's get a soccer game going or something." Like I get super into it.
Yeah.
So with trading card games, they make me always want to play some trading card games at those kinds of shows.
Yeah.
Which I feel like is common for a lot of people. However, if I'm watching by myself or no one wants to play with me, sometimes I would just play a game by myself, which could sound sad, but who cares? It's fun. So
Yeah.
what I do is I'd sit there, um, and but just playing Yu-Gi-Oh by yourself would be boring. And also, I would just grab like a handful of cards rather than running to a different part of the house to grab two decks to play by myself. How'd I do that? And so the
Yeah.
decks didn't really work. So that's where a lot of my game ideas have come from, is making up a game to play by myself while watching a show about card games. Which sounds very weird when I say it out loud, but like that's just how I've been doing it.
Yeah, when I was making Balloon Busters, I've played like over 100 rounds of Balloon Busters by myself. Uh, and I that was the only game that I've ever made that I based off of a mechanic, and the idea was to have like, oh, your opponent has like three balloons and you have to pop them all. But I purposely added it to the game a way that you could play by yourself because I did basically the same thing.
Interesting. The I find that weird because my I guess I've only I've only actually attempted one game, um, and I've revealed some stuff about it. But I'm not going to talk about that one too much. But I've only because I haven't released on the channel, but I haven't made a game that wasn't fantasy really. Like that's always the direction my mind goes. I don't know why. Like Yu-Gi-Oh isn't necessarily a fantasy game. I didn't grow up playing Magic the Gathering. I didn't play a single game until I believe middle school. Like I completely grew up with Yu-Gi-Oh and then Pokemon. Um, but I can never when I envision myself making a game, I always think of, like your undead cards, your dragon cards, your like forest cards, things like that.
Yeah. Um, for me, it's the opposite because I kind of feel like fantasy, like TCGs, are a bit like overdone.
Oh, they are.
And I'm not trying to like throw shade, obviously, because um, yours looks very unique um, compared to a lot of the other ones. But when I think of like just a generic one, it's either like, oh, monster creature things or fantasy.
Uh,
That's like the generic TCG that like comes into my mind. You know.
yeah, I like how you said unique, which I know is a compliment, but sounds like you can't figure out anything nice to say. Uh,
To be fair, I don't know much about pillars.
hey, I haven't released too much about it anyways, but it's getting there. But on this train of thought, though, to get into more of like the actual what this podcast episode is about, like
Yeah, the topic.
getting into how you get these ideas, because that's how I get my ideas. But like the full-on inspiration, I think, comes from a lot more than just I'm going to create a game about crabs, right? Like that's what, or like me coming up with this mechanic because I was playing a card game by myself. That's kind of where it's introduced, but that's not where the idea comes from, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So like for you, what would you say is the like a necessary step in creating the idea, the like crux of your card game?
Honestly, um, it kind of just comes to me. I don't have like a particular process where I'm like, oh, I'm gonna, do this and then that and then, you know, brainstorm a bunch of stuff or anything. It's kind of like, you know, um, for the crab one, for instance, that doesn't actually quite have a name. I used to like crabs a lot, so I was like, oh, what if I make a card game based on those? So I think if there was a way that I came up with my ideas, it would be really just looking at like the things that like I like the most, and then you know trying to work that into a game.
Yeah. Uh, it I see what you mean there. It's one of those things where like for the most part they just kind of come to you. Um, but I think a lot of that is I think that is an important thing as well. That's annoying. That's kind of annoying if someone's like trying to figure out the answer. But I
Yeah.
feel like you can't force it. If you sit down and go, all right, I want to create a trading card game. Like I've seen plenty of people in the community do. They're like scrapping my old one, creating a new game, throw me some ideas. I think that's a horrible approach. Like absolutely terrible. I think a game cannot come to life from that. I think what you
Oh, I
have to
agree.
do is just wait on it until something happens that is fun. If there's something that seems fun, that's what you latch on to. Like, so I'm just gonna throw out my game for an example. Pillars has a lot of mechanics in it. besides your health being these pillars things, you level up your cards, you level up your pillars, and then you also have, it's harder to run multi-faction decks, but they are a lot stronger. There's a lot of interesting mechanics that go into the game. The way the archetypes work, the way the cards are named, a lot of the abilities. A lot of stuff went into this. But I didn't sit down and go, all right, these are everything I want in a game, let's put them together. And I feel like a lot of people think that's how creators make their stuff. When in reality, I originally was playing a game by myself, and I was playing Pokemon by myself at the time just because I had cool decks I wanted to use. And instead of using my prize cards the way they're supposed to be, I just laid them out and made them my life like Duel Master shields. So even the original concept for pillars wasn't unique. But just starting from there and having fun with that, I slowly bled in all of these mechanics. Like, Pillars has been a project since 2017. You cannot rush this stuff.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I lost my train of thought there for a second. But yeah, no, I completely agree with that. A lot of my ideas, because I've never really, I did finish Balloon Busters, so I guess that's the one that I'll run with. When I came up with the idea for that, I was watching a Disney Channel TV show, and someone was having a birthday party, and it was animated. And I was like, wow, I was like, look at balloons. Those are so easy to draw, man. I could make like 1 million of those. And then I was like, wait a minute.
I could make 1 million of those.
And then I did, so, you know. But totally, I feel like it is a thing where you kind of just have to, like, go with it. And correct me if I'm wrong here, but didn't the Chaos Galaxy come into mind because he, because Zach, didn't he, like, love space or something like that? Wasn't that how
I
that came into
think
mind?
he's mentioned that. But I'm happy
I feel like I remember it.
I'm happy you brought Chaos Galaxy into this, because I think, well, like, I made a video on it. It didn't do great, but I just thought it was an interesting video, like highlighting some of my old games. But I think one of the best series on YouTube to watch for creating a trading card game is actually Zach from Chaos Galaxy's My Old TCG series. Because watching that, you'll directly see Chaos Galaxy he's been creating it since he was a kid.
Yes.
Like, his old TCG slowly become Chaos Galaxy in how they play. Even before, I think it was Elementals, his first one, he says this is really similar. You just see his mechanics slowly evolve into this thing. And that's what you kind of need to expect when you make your game. It's not like, for example, I'm going to throw your game under the bus. Combo Masters finished in what, 9 months?
Yeah, something like that. We started in, like, September or October.
Yeah. For all you guys out there, that's not what's going to happen with your game.
No,
There's a
it's definitely not.
like, Combo Masters in a lot of ways shouldn't have worked, but it did, and we're happy it did. But
Yes.
you shouldn't. A lot of people come in, and I'm not here to throw any shade on this podcast. You know, I think all games should be respected, but also the way you get better is by recognizing failure, not success. You're not going to come in there and expect my game's going to come out and I'm going to have a 64-player tournament. No, Chaos Galaxy has been out for years, and that's why Galaxy Madness was possible. And also, even if I'm not the biggest fan of the game, in terms of the competitive side, that doesn't mean that Zach hasn't put a lot of effort into making competitive playable so that was possible. Like, there are 3 sets.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, and I think there's 6 starter decks. Like, there's a lot to get into there. So that's one of the big things for me on that. And then there's something else I was going to mention. Oh, yeah. But one of the things I would like to bring up is, do you remember Monstercraft TCG?
Yes. Yes, I do actually.
That's the biggest example of you can't expect success, you know?
Yeah.
It, like, don't get me wrong. Round of applause for the game being created and published. Like, takes an
Yeah.
incredible amount of work. But then there's instantly art contests, creating all this stuff, and like, there's just no hype around the game. And I think part of that was
Hmm.
because, like, I think taking your time with your game is very important. Like, I've had tons of breaks with Pillars, but
Yeah.
like, it's just kind of that's just kind of how it's been. I've taken my breaks, and then when I come back with more energy, more stuff gets done. And because of that, I've put more effort into my YouTube channel. Now, pretty sure at least one person out there besides me might buy it. It might just be my brother, but like, who knows?
Yeah, no, I get it. I feel like we did get very, very, very lucky with Combo Masters. Um, and I don't know why exactly, you know, we did get so lucky with it. Because like you mentioned, it definitely shouldn't have worked on multiple levels. And so, I mean, when you look at games, though, you're right. You do have to take a while with them, and sometimes, many times in the past, there have been times where I was like, making cards, making cards, making cards, and I was like, you know what, this game just doesn't work, you know,
And
and
that's okay.
so you build on it. Yeah, no, it's totally okay. It's actually a good thing because, like you said, when you recognize, this game, sure, I put a lot of work into it, but it's really not that fun. Once you can admit, you can be like, okay, well, how can I change it to make it fun? You know?
Yeah, and then like I understand we have gotten pretty off topic here, but I think these all relate in their own way. Um, but like just trying to bring it back a bit more, like to the creation of an idea with all this stuff in mind. I think it really just comes down to when you start, you need to like feel like a little kid creating a game to play with their family. Like you I think to create an idea for your game, you do not create it with the idea of commercial success in your mind. Now, Pillars, for example, I do want Pillars to do well. The goal is 100% the game crafter. The reason for that
Yes.
is because for me is because I just want to be able to have my cards in my hands, honestly, and show them off. Um,
Yeah, I get
but
it.
one of the big things is if Pillars was my first game, that wouldn't be the goal, or at least it shouldn't be the goal. It's because I've been creating games my entire life with my friends and family that I believe I'm justified in doing this. And even then, that's not the main goal. If your goal is to create a game to have it be the next Magic the Gathering or even just the next Chaos Galaxy, your game is going to fail. That's just
Well,
it's and I'm not saying like it's destined to, but in a way I am just because the approach to creating a game, if you're not creating a project you love, that you personally, if no one buys it, you will still think you would regret nothing. I think your game can't succeed.
yeah. Well, I mean, I feel like when I go into creating a game, I try to make something that's fun, and I guess a part of it being fun is so that because people would be more likely to buy your game if it's fun anyway. But I totally agree with you. Like, when we went into Combo Masters, like when we had the original idea, like the big thing was like, let's make a game that's fun, you know? And, uh,
Yeah. Actually, go ahead and talk about the journey of Combo Masters because I think that really fits the how to create an idea for a game.
okay, well, one day, um, I guess it was like around mid-September, um, I posted on the community, I was like, hey, anyone want to make a game together? And Cam and Cool Kid both were like, yeah. But the issue was that I meant that we each make our games and then show them off to each other.
Yeah, it
Um,
was it was a 1 week trading card game challenge.
yeah, and then
I
Cam
know because
misunderstood that.
I almost joined that, and I should have. Then I would have been raking in these Combo Masters profits.
I know, right, dude? You
I
definitely
was
should have.
this close.
But me and then Cam misunderstood, and I was like, you know what? This is actually a good idea. So Cam hadn't had his idea yet because he showed up a little late. So it was between either making a B trading card game, which I know has technically already been done, or creating combo masters. So we looked at the two ideas and we're like, yeah, we're doing combo masters. And um, we had no idea how. Me and Cam worked on combo masters for like over a month before we even knew how to play.
Okay, I don't
Um,
recommend that.
I don't recommend that, but um, yeah. So then um, once we had the cards, it was, I believe we had like 20 or something like that to play test. We started doing a little bit of play testing, and we were like, wow, you know what, this game is, it's fun, but there's a lot of issues here. Not that there were a lot of issues, but just there were things, that needed to be changed. You know, lowering the health originally, and then hiring the health, and, adding more cards in the deck. Those sort of specifics. Um,
Yeah, because
and,
like a lot of people, sorry to cut you off, but like a lot
yeah,
of people don't realize that you like part of the creating an idea for the game, the reason why you need to create the idea instead of the game is because you're not going to come out with the same thing. Like it's
yeah,
going to vaguely resemble what you originally started with.
but, yeah, like, basically every time I play tested the game with someone new, they were like, oh, you should change this, you should change that. And we did. That was another big thing. Um, and it's another big thing that I wanted to mention is that I've seen a lot of creators that, someone in the community will say, hey, you know what? If I were you, I would change this rule because it doesn't really make much sense. You should do this instead, or anything like that. And they'll be like, no, it's my game. And to an extent, it is your game, and you should do with it what you want. But you also should take in community advice and at least consider what effect it would have on your game. Um, because, and you should be creating the game for yourself first, but obviously you want other people to enjoy it as well. You know, you want other people to be able to play it, to enjoy it. So I do definitely think that you should at least consider, um, feedback from playtesters. Um,
Yeah, like if it's just one person no enough has complained about it, then that's fine. But do
yeah,
always take the criticism like to heart. Like if someone's being mean, you don't take it hard. But like always take to heart the complaints and criticisms about the game because that's one person that maybe would enjoy the game otherwise. So like even if you don't
yeah.
take their suggestion, always keep in mind that they had a valid reason to not like your game.
Well, I
Um,
have two examples, actually, real quick.
all right.
One of them, someone was saying that we should completely change the game and make it not a trading card game and have like a shared deck and stuff like that. And we considered it, and we were like, no, that doesn't fit the game,
You
you
considered
know?
that for a long time.
Yeah, we did. But, that's fine if, we just didn't believe that that was the direction that we wanted the game to go. But then there was a guy who recommended that we change the reflex cards to be played upside down in your chain instead of from your hand. And that was like revolutionary for the game. It completely changed the game. but for the better. And with draw power too, someone, I forget who it was, it may have even been you, was complaining about the draw power in the game.
Oh yeah, the hand limit. You're welcome. Ruined your deck.
No, not that one. The draw power. Because it was originally one card per turn, but you usually play at least 2 cards per turn. So then you
Oh yeah.
have this period where you have no cards, and that gets really frustrating. So then, it was my brother actually who came up with the idea. He
Yeah,
was like,
30x.
"Why?" He was like, "Why don't you just do both?" And then I'm like, "Well, what do you mean do both?" And then he's like, "Why don't you make it so you could do 2 cards and 1 card?" And I'm like, "You are a genius, dude."
Which
So,
that's honestly amazing because that one rule is what makes Combo Masters playable.
oh, totally. Well, because 2 cards per turn is way too much all the time. But 1 card per turn isn't enough.
Yeah.
So the ability to choose, but obviously you choose 2 cards per turn, so that's why we made it like a trade-off for each. But I do definitely think that it's a big thing that your game, where it starts and where it ends, is 2 completely different things, and that's a good thing. That's what you want, because that means that your game is growing and evolving over time to become a better game.
Yeah. Speaking of things starting and ending as 2 completely different things, this topic.
Well, not really. I just described the process of how Combo Masters came from an idea to completion.
Yeah. Uh, that is... It is interesting to me, like, how... Like, just how many people think that the goal... I remember Soaps addressed this in a video. I think... Remember when he uploaded that video talk about why he doesn't make videos anymore, and then he came back and everyone was all like, yay. Did you watch the video he posted originally?
I'm honestly not too sure.
Because he mentioned, I believe it was Soaps, I'm sorry if I've got this wrong, but I think it was Soaps that mentioned that he doesn't like how the community now is all about getting on the Game Crafter and just creating games for that. He liked, because keep in mind, his game, Sketchbook Chronicles, is not on the Game Crafter. He prints it all and sells it all himself. Does a stellar job about that, by the way. His products look like Game Crafter products. But,
Yes.
but still, he was talking about how he doesn't like that business end of it. And I can see the argument. Personally, I'm on the fence about that. I'm fine, but I believe the Game Crafter should be a goal for creators. But I do like the question he brings up there, and that you need to consider your game as, like, not as, Chaos Galaxy, or
Yeah.
Eldritch Kingdom, or any of that. You should consider it a homemade trading card game, even if the goal is to publish it.
Totally.
Because, like, the thing is, like, Pillars, the way it's going, like, after it's published, if it wasn't on the Game Crafter and didn't have, my art in it, it would feel like more of a regular game. I've implemented a lot of mechanics that are not gimmicky. I've mitigated it so it'll be able to be competitive and intense and quick, because that's a big part of my game.
Yes.
But that doesn't mean that the process wasn't a homemade trading card game, and that the process is what really defined it for me.
Yes.
Like, almost all of the original playtesting for the game, and almost all of it in general, has been me sitting down with my brother, who also loves Pillars, and playing it with him. And I've
I
done
wish
that.
my family would play games with me.
Uh,
Go on, though.
But yeah, my brother and I, we've been playing trading card games for years together, and that's how Pillars really came to be, was from that process. And all of my game making experience has been, with my friends or my cousins or my other family, or me making those games for them. So it's that process. So my advice for someone creating their game now, who, like, has not already done that, like if this is your first game and your goal is still the game crafter, go for it. It'll still be a
Yeah.
special feeling for you. Just because we're not gatekeepers about this, just because we've been making games for a decade doesn't mean our games are worth any more than yours. Obviously aim to get that on the game crafter. No matter how your art is, no matter how your template is, no matter how bad the rules are, publish that thing if you want. Like, we're all in this together here.
I feel like a big thing about getting your game on the Game Crafter, though, for a lot of people, is just to be able to have it, like, printed and, like, in your hands.
Exactly. And like, if you did your cards on paper, not having that see-through card back, not having them bend all the time.
Yes.
Even if
Well,
that's the goal, like,
well, that's a big thing. Like, I know for me personally, when I go into a game, the goal is to be able to order it, have it sent to me from the Game Crafter, and to be able to be like, look at these cards that I made, you know? Not to sell them on the Game Crafter, but to buy them from the Game Crafter.
yeah. But just with what I was saying, I want to wrap that up real quick. I think
Yeah.
the way you create the game, even if it's your first, should be done like that. You shouldn't, like, even though it's what I've been doing, I feel like there is a problem. If it's all you can do, totally go for it. But just creating your cards already with a great template, upload them to Untap, and only testing it that way. I think if possible, play the game by yourself with some paper cards. Figure it out from there and just take it slow. Like you're not creating it to be published, and I think your game is going to be astronomically better than
Astronomically.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that, though. You're right.
But yeah, is there anything else you would like to mention before we wrap this thing up?
Honestly, not me. When I made my...
You cut out a bit there.
Oh. When I started making games, I just... so...
Okay, I'm sorry you're cutting out, but I assume it's something that's been addressed, right? Okay, it looks like we're losing him, but anyways, I want to thank everyone for listening in and hearing what we have to say here. Be sure to check out Combo Masters. Link will be in the description. I've also done a review on it if you want to check out that video. And also check out the previous episode of the podcast where we talked about the competitiveness of a homemade trading card game and how to grow that scene and what to do about that. So please subscribe if you're new. Like the video if you enjoyed it. Please leave comments for what topics you'd like to see us address next, as well as potential other hosts, or co-hosts rather, of the Cardcast podcast. So yeah, I hope everyone enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next video.